How SSD works. SSD stands for Solid-State Drive, a storage device commonly found in laptops, desktops, and smartphones, including the one you're using to watch this video. Unlike HDDs, which use spinning platters to store data, SSDs use flash memory chips. If you haven't watched how HDDs work, check out that video first. But how can something as small as your thumb can store hours of movies, thousands of photos, and millions of files while reading and writing data in milliseconds? So, how does an SSD store data? Inside an SSD chip, there's a structure called VNAND, short for vertical NAND. It consists of multiple memory cells stacked on top of each other, forming a dense and efficient storage system. These cells are known as charge trap flash memory cells, where SSDs store data. Each individual cell is incredibly small, typically measuring around 20 nanometers or less in modern SSDs, allowing millions of them to fit within a tiny chip. At a basic level, SSDs store electrons inside these memory cells. If a cell is empty, it represents a binary 1, and if it contains electrons, it represents a binary 0. This is the foundation of digital data storage. Unlike HDDs, which rely on a moving read-write head, SSDs use electrical signals. Each cell is connected to a control gate, which regulates the flow of electricity. When writing data, an electrical charge is applied through a channel to trap electrons inside the memory cell. These electrons can stay trapped for years, ensuring data retention. When reading data, a low voltage is applied to the control gate. The control gate is vertically shared among multiple cells. If a cell is empty, the current flows easily through the channel, and the SSD reads it as a 1. If the cell contains electrons, it blocks the current, and the SSD reads it as a 0. As the SSD sends electricity through the gate, it detects which cells have electrons and which do not. The cells without electrons let the current flow, while those with electrons do not. The gate then increases the voltage until it passes through, allowing the SSD to determine, this cell requires low voltage, so it represents 1. This cell requires higher voltage, so it represents 0. This information is sent through a channel and ends up in a structure called a bit line. And this entire vertical structure is called a string. It acts like a highway for information sent by the cells. To store more data in the same physical space, SSDs use vertical stacking. A single NAND string consists of about 100 layers of memory cells, arranged vertically along a control gate. Then, these structures are copied 40,000 columns wide, forming what is called a row. A single row can have multiple cells that are arranged vertically to have the same control gate, allowing multiple bits to be accessed simultaneously. This is called page, and it is the reason why SSD have such incredible read and write speeds. Rows are further duplicated 50,000 times to form a block, which then connects to bit lines that transfer data. This entire layout is then duplicated 8 times and packed into a single SSD chip, typically around 2 cubic centimeters in size. In the modern era, engineers continue increasing SSD capacity by reducing the size of cells, so more can fit in the same space, using more chips or improving cell engineering. There are now different types of SSD cells. SLC stores 1 bit per cell, fastest, most durable, expensive, and the one we previously talked about. MLC stores 2 bits per cell. TLC stores 3 bits per cell, most common for consumer SSDs. QLC stores 4 bits per cell, highest capacity, lower endurance. A QLC SSD can store the same amount of data in just 2 cells as an SLC SSD would need 8 cells for. However, higher bit per cell designs tend to be slower and wear out faster due to increased voltage complexity. As of March 2025, the fastest SSD available is the Samsung PM1743 with a sequential read speed of up to 13,000 megabytes per second. Meanwhile, the largest SSD is the Nimbus Data Exadrive 100 terabytes, offering an enormous 100 terabytes of storage in a single drive. With a price tag of up to $40,000. SSDs have several advantages. Unlike HDDs, SSDs have no moving parts, making them quieter, more power efficient, and less likely to fail from impact. Their read and write speeds are incredibly fast because they access multiple cells simultaneously. They are also smaller and lighter compared to HDDs, making them ideal for thin and portable devices. However, SSDs also have drawbacks. It has higher cost per gigabyte. On average, SSDs cost about twice as much per gigabyte as HDDs. It also has limited write endurance. Each memory cell has a finite number of write cycles before it wears out. Additionally, data recovery from an SSD is more difficult. Unlike HDDs, SSDs do not store data in a fixed, predictable manner. Instead, data is spread across multiple chips and blocks, making recovery complex and often requiring specialized forensic techniques. Despite this, SSDs are still a worthwhile investment. With their fast data access, they are mainly used for quick booting. If you want to get the best of both worlds, you can combine SSDs and HDDs to your computer. Use an SSD for your operating system and applications or games for fast boot times, smooth performance, and quick loading time. And then, use an HDD for mass storage of music, videos, and large files where speed isn't as critical as the capacity. Whether you prioritize speed or storage, choosing the right balance between SSD and HDD can greatly improve your system's performance. If you like this video, consider to subscribe and check out another video here.